Hi, it's Jessica DaMassa for HIMSS TV, and joining me right now I have Wendy Hutton. She is managing partner for Canaan Partners, which is a venture capital fund, and you guys focus on medical device, you told me, some biopharma, and a little bit of digital health. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, great. So talk to me about some of the investments that you've made recently. What are you excited about in this space?
So I think in the digital health space, what's very interesting is the convergence of technologies of medtech providing real-world evidence or delivery systems of data to provide that real-world evidence through to a digital health application, which brings that data to the physician and brings that data down to the patient so they can have better data to manage their chronic diseases or coaching that is tied to actually their own personalized monitoring and assessment and data. So an example of that would be a couple companies would be therapeutics, which is providing a wearable nicotine replacement therapy with compliance monitoring and coaching to help a patient get both end-to-end drug support as well as behavior modification and coaching for smoking cessation.
Okay.
And if there's the number one public health problem that we do still have is smoking. And if you can help someone quit and move away from that habit and that terrible toll on health, it's a really a big boon for them personally, for their families, and then from a public health standpoint.
I'm picking up on a couple of different things here about the investment that you've made in them, and it sounds like, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about your philosophy.
Okay.
You know, it's like, how do you decide which companies to go after? And the two things that struck me in that example were that it's a platform. It's really got all of the pieces in it. It's got the data collection, it's got a wearable, it's got the education component. And then the other thing that struck me is, I mean, the magnitude of the problem that it's trying to solve. So, I mean, would you say that those are those things that you generally look for in the companies that you try to invest in? And then what else? What else kind of, you know, do you have to tick off the list in order to make an investment?
So we're investing out of a very large fund, Jessica. It's an $800 million fund. And so we have to look at the size of the prize of can we build a valuable company, because we can't just invest small amounts of money and have a nice times return as an angel investor might. We need to build companies of significance and scale. So we do start with the magnitude of the problem.
Right.
How many patients can we treat? How many patients can we help? Is there money already in the system that we can identify in terms of reimbursement streams? And then if we build a technology like therapeutics for smoking cessation, is anyone going to care when we get to the end?
Right.
And that's part of the size of the prize. The bigger the marketplace is, if it's a multi-billion-dollar marketplace, then the corporates and strategics who participate are going to care.
Yeah.
If there's if patient data is improved with that therapeutic approach.
Right, if there's an outcome tied to it. Is there anything that you're not interested in investing in anymore? I mean, like, because tech, it kind of comes and goes, and it's like you guys are looking at, like you said, the magnitude of these. I mean, these are not small problems, and these are not small companies that you're looking at. So is there anything that you're like, this is a little too fleeting or a little bit too, you know, or you're over it at this point?
So we have an interesting platform at Canaan because we're a diversified fund. We're tech and healthcare, and so we do look a lot at our tech brethren and what comes and goes on the consumer side. And I think for us in the health tech space and the digital health space, we have shied away from consumer facing and wellness facing because we think there's a lot of value there, but building an enterprise with defensible characteristics. I mean, we're used to looking at IP, intellectual property. We're looking at FDA approval as part of a moat that you can build around a technology. And on the consumer side, the point of entry is pretty easy for someone to build an app. While it can be very valuable to anti-anxiety, for instance.
Sure.
Can you go to an app and get help? Great purpose, great public health, but not a pathway to monetize to a big company that we've been able to determine most of the time.
No, and I think that's fair.
That's an area that we think fits better within a larger company or small companies that can create something where they don't have to see a big upside.
I'm curious too, as you had mentioned, the fact that Canaan is diversified, and so you're looking at other areas, and we're hearing, a lot about blockchain and things like that, and I would imagine from on a financial side, those investments are further along in those companies there. Are there any other like when you trend watch, I guess, across your diversified firm here, where else do you look, I guess, to kind of see what's coming next for healthcare, or do you really think it's such a unique animal that you can't really?
Yeah. Well, we do have a little skunkworks project to try to. To try to figure out if blockchain has an application in how to handle patient data and transaction data in the healthcare system. So when you look at, for example, the pharmaceutical supply chain and the pharmaceutical payment chain through prescription benefit managers, there are two different tracks, and there's a lot of transactions that are going on, and there is a lot of rebating going on that's very opaque in the system.
Totally.
And if there's any area that Congress is looking at agitating on, it's trying to fix some of that lack of transparency in that rebating system. But to then have less more transparency, there's also a concern about patient identification, confidentiality. Could other people corrupt that transaction chain? And so one can envision, is there a role for blockchain in some of that data integrity?
Sure.
I can't tell you how that might play out, and I can't tell you if there's a company there.
Yeah.
But I certainly can tell you that there is direct room for improvement by taking some of the lessons from financial transactions on the fintech side and bringing them over into healthcare transactions.
For sure. Yeah, and it's interesting because there's I think at this point it seems like this year this is like year 2 of blockchain being really dominant in the conversation in health tech, and I feel like people are looking for a good use case for it, and so it's interesting to hear from an investment side, where you guys want to place your bets, so to literally place your bets and put your money in terms of blowing that technology out and trying to integrate it into the system in a meaningful way. So it's interesting to hear your point of view on that. Yeah. I'm curious too, what are you excited about? Is there anything that you hasn't really come across your path yet that you've got your eye on? In some of these more, especially in the medical space. That's interesting to me that you're in that area. I talk to a lot of digital health investors, but I'm really curious about on the device or on the biopharma side. Is there anything that you're really excited about from a new technologies or an exponential technology standpoint?
I think from our firm's vantage point, we have a lot of plays in oncology, and these are very expensive modalities coming down the pike with breakthrough clinical efficacy. And so for the first time, we're seeing highly lethal cancers literally going to cure with technologies in the CAR T cellular therapy space, for example. But how do we control an expansion and scaling? How do we make it more efficient? How do we make it cheaper to the system? And some of that's going to be actually digital. And when you take a patient sample and you need to actually expand their cells, treat those cells, and then transfer it back to the patient, that's a lot of handling and a lot of operations. And so having things like a digital overlay to that, and how do we stack various therapies in cancer so it's affordable to the system.
Right.
So we're looking for opportunities in that area, not to pare back these incredible scientific breakthroughs, but how do the puzzle pieces fit together? How do we get therapies to the market faster so they don't cost so much and burden the system so much?
And it almost sounds like the investment you want to make there is in something that is actually systemic, that helps the workflow better in terms of that.
Helps the workflow, helps the regulatory process.
And just manages that more efficiently. Very neat. So. Well, it was lovely to speak with you. It's so insightful always, I think, to speak with an investor. So thank you so much for stopping by. I'm Jessica DaMassa here for HIMSS TV. Thanks so much for joining us.